Hey, what's going on? It's Saturday. It's Saturday afternoon, and that means it's time for only one thing. This is the Fantasy Walkabout. I'm your host with the most time on his hands. I'm Thomas Tipple FF. Join me from around the world, bright and early in the AM.
Early.
Look at that morning head of hair on Tom Lee over there in Aussie land. It's bright and early. What, 6:30, 7 o'clock for you right now?
6:45.
Whoa, bright and early. He's so dedicated that he gets up. Or has already been up, probably already worked out, fended off some ruse already, right? Getting them off the property bright and early to sit down and talk strategy. Last week, we had Billy on here, and we were talking about, arbitrary tier rankings, why you should never spend a first on Mike Williams, how to watch out for that early breakout, that iffy breakout, when to jump on, when to let it pass you. So you can go and check that out. But this week we have another Billy. Yes, you did.
Yes, you did.
This week we're going to specialize in headache players. So players that actually, Tommy, why don't you explain what the headache players is?
So, I mean, we love talking about established rosters, right? This is really our go, especially in the preseason at the moment. Drafts are a fair while away for a lot of us, so we're looking at our rosters going, what do we do?
Jacob, who's in his fifth right now.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, unless you're an absolute maniac and you want to get stuck in this early. You're looking at your roster, you're going, well, it either went well last year or it didn't go well. What can I be doing right now to start turning my team over, trying to make it better? And there's these players you look at your roster, you're going, what are you?
Yeah.
Like, you have value. But is it, and we always talk about true value, is this player more valuable to your team whilst it's on it? Is it going to be more valuable to trade away? A lot of the guys we'll talk about today sort of sit in that mid-tier. They could provide more value if they stay in your team, but they could also provide a lot more security and assets if you trade them away right now. So a few of the sort of hot button guys you'll see across the bird app. I think it'll be a good chat. I think we have a lot of fun talking about a few of these guys. Maybe not so much fun depending on how many shares we have with them as well.
And part of it too, like there were a couple of those players last year. Hollywood Brown would have been one of those players last year,
absolutely.
Even though he's younger. So if you bought in or read my article on fantasyadventure.com, you would have known to buy in, and it paid off for him.
Yeah.
Last season, and there are some other plays. Maddie's here now too. What up?
Look at you like your Cooper Cups and stuff. Like, these
Cooper
receivers
Cups,
that look like
Travis
they're aging
Kelce,
out. Yeah.
right? Aaron Jones. A lot of these are going to be running backs. It feels like Zeke's been in this category for 3 years already.
since he entered the league.
Right. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting when we get to that at the end. Of course, we're going to do a little bit of Do We Care? We're just going to talk about a couple of different things here. But before we do, the reason we do this show, like specifically, is to help you win. And when you win, you should win something for your efforts. And to help you and your league do that, you can actually go to trophysmack.com. You've seen them on Shark Tank. Everyone bought in. It's great program. They even have their own Smack Zone fantasy football dedicated area where you can go and read articles and get video. It's just fantastic. But most importantly, you can buy a trophy. And did you know, Tom Lee, that if you buy a trophy and you add a ring, a championship ring of $60 value and you use the promo code TIPPLE, TIPPLE, that's nipple with a T, you actually get that ring for free. If you're not taking advantage of that, I don't even know what you're playing for. If you don't want to have that trophy sitting behind you, right in front of you at the dinner table, right? You go to your friend's house for a barbecue, bobbity boopy, it's on the table, right? What's the point?
You need 2 chairs everywhere you go because you got to put
That's
that
right.
bad boy down next to you.
When I won the home league in 2019, you better believe I had it at the barbecue, at baseball games. I took it everywhere to let everyone know what was up. That's what you need to do. So go to trophysmack.com and do that. And look, we are going to move into our Do We Care? This is just stuff that it's news. It's already been talked about. It's Saturday, so it's kind of been talked about all week. This isn't late breaking news. Just stuff to just casually talk through whether we care about these hot updates or not. Doug Peterson going to Jacksonville, right? We're going to kick it off with that. I actually like this hire. I understand that the Leftwich story would have been great. He was drafted in the first round by Leftwich, etc.
Yep.
I think it was more about if Leftwich went there, Balky would be gone. And I think that's why people cared about Leftwich getting this job. But Peterson is a smart offensive-minded coach. I think he's going to be fine. I think he can help Lawrence. I think he's going to do all right there.
Well, I think the bar's set so low so far that as long as he doesn't kick any of his players, he should be in an okay position.
I can't believe that actually happened.
It's just ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, he's a solid head coach, and he has been for a fair while. Yes, it probably got a little stale by the time he left the Eagles, but yeah, I mean, for your pieces that you have in Dynasty in particular, it at least breathes solid, known, successful life into them.
Well, he's 25 years experience.
Yeah, if they're going to have a shot to succeed, this is a decent chance at it. It doesn't have to be the best out there, but it's not going to be the worst, and then they're not taking a huge risk. So
he might have the most experience since Coughlin was there way back when. He might be their most experienced coach since then. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm still skeptical on Lawrence and gang over there right now.
It's a big old we'll see. Yeah.
Anthony Lynn, the 49ers. I don't really care about this one as much, obviously, with Mike McDaniels projected to go to oh my gosh, Miami. Or talking with Miami. You assume that this move kind of makes that a thing. I don't really care about this too much. I think Shanahan's system is Shanahan's system.
That's pretty much
I think he's really calling the plays.
Yeah.
I think Anthony Lynn is going to be really happy, though, when he gets to have Plan Debo in the backfield. I think that's Debo, his...
Yeah. And if you're an Elijah Mitchell owner or fan, at least you know that development, that pathway to success previously is there.
Billy, so that's not true. That can't be true.
What?
Billy just put in the chat here, Peterson needs 3 wins to become the 5th winningest coach in Jaguars history. That can't be actually real. You're fucking with me now.
Hang on, is this just in the years that Billy's been watching football? So the last 6 months?
Oh my.
Sorry,
he's
Billy.
Gonna quit. He's gonna quit. Oh my gosh. That wasn't even me, Billy. That wasn't me. That was Tom Lee. Look. Oh well. I don't think the Lynn hire really messes with the 49ers too much. I think it's Shanahan's team to run.
It's probably a good place for him to go because it's quite a solid situation. One of the few, so far. Yeah.
He got done dirty, I think, in Detroit, and just really rough for him after straight downfall since.
And he wanted to operate the special teams, which is fantastic.
Right. And then we got Senior Bowl hype. I don't really care about this. This isn't my specialty.
We'll probably crack into more of this in the next coming weeks as we start looking into the rookies. But
there are so many good Devy folks that know who all of these guys are. They're better people that are way better at scouting quarterbacks. I will say this: the Willis hype right now after the Senior Bowl seems to be skyrocketing. He seems to honestly, surprisingly enough, be the lead.
Yeah.
Right, to go in a lot of these places. And Billy's just updating us. Coughlin has 68, Del Rio 68, Marone 23, Bradley 14, then Tucky, oh my God, Tucker, Malarkey, and Meyer 2. Oh my God, he does need 3.
When your name's Malarkey, you know it's not going to go well.
Not a bunch of Malarkey. But yeah, the Senior Bowl hype is not really for me, and I know I think it's amped up this year a little bit because Obviously, Cooper Kupp is like the Senior Bowl poster boy,
Poster boy, yeah.
right? He's this show's poster boy. We love Cooper Kupp because his value up until like he's actually kind of not our poster boy now because he doesn't reflect
He's done his
what
thing,
his value was. Last year would have been the time to be listening to us for all the Cooper Kuppness, but
he's a graduate. Yeah,
he is. He's graduated to top 5. The guy's unreal, but I'm just not the guy. So the Senior Bowl hype is great, and it's important to sift through that
just
information.
Something to be aware of, right? Yeah, it's just out there at the moment.
Yeah. So lots of that to come, especially with the draft process. So that's kind of do we care? Do you want to move into the next little bit? We're going to take a quick second here. Is that Billy's last name, Milestone? I've known you for 3 years, and this is news to me. If so, he was just hanging out in the chat here today. This is great. Look, when we come back in a second, we're going to get in. We're going to get into the next little bit here. Okay, sit tight. Look, part of the reason I love doing the show on a Saturday is it's kind of more of, it feels like a little bit more of a chilled, relaxed vibe for us through this. And with that, I just want you to explain our next bit. If you're new to the show and you haven't, or you're coming back to the show for the first time in a while, this is a little something new that Tom Lee has put in. This is his baby here. So why don't you walk us through the next segment here?
So we talked last week about what a tally was. So essentially a large beer. I don't know if you guys would call them 40. And it's not quite a 40 over there, but a long beer. Have a good.
We call him a tall boy here.
Tall boy. Yep, same thing. So crack open a tally, punish a tally. We're gonna have a chat, a little dynasty themed chat over what would be a large beer. It's not going to get too in depth. It's not going to be too specific, but it's just generally talking about strategies or approaches that are out there. Making you familiarize with what they are and then how to work through whether or not they're right for you. And today, today we're going to look at flex rankings and tiers. So we all know about positional rankings. We all know like we've talked about tiers and the relevance of them
all the time.
But flex rankings are a huge thing, right? This is purely like which piece are you going to take above another piece. So
there's a difference between having your tiers. And I'm not also Maddie put. Love that Walkabout is on Saturday now. Perfection. It's working out great for us too. It's a little more relaxed. We're not rushing through everything, so it's been good. Look, I will talk about arbitrary rankings not meaning anything all day, but we're not here to do that again. You can go last week and listen to that, and I'm probably going to get into it next week too, because it's just something that drives me nuts. Flip of a coin and all of a sudden you're swapping 3 wide receivers arbitrarily back and forth for no benefit. It's not actually helping you. Worrying day to day about your ranks doesn't freaking help you. But these tiers, when it comes to making trades, because again, we do not focus on draft value. That's not what you should know. Your draft value, you should be going and checking ADPs, kind of knowing where, if you want to use keep, trade, cut, you can do that. There are so many different avenues to double check on your own values, but it is important to have your own, right? And this offseason, we're getting into tier building, and Billy's working on a little this and that to help with that. It's coming. But when you get to the point where I want to trade this running back, and it's like if you have a tier 2 running back or a tier 3 running back, let's take a look at like a tier. I have him in a tier 3, right, with a guy like Darvin Cook.
Yep.
Okay. How do you know which wide receiver you're willing to move to, or which quarterback, or whichever? Because now this is where tiers kind of get confusing. Where we put last year, you want to trading position for position. So trading a receiver for a receiver is easy because you will happily trade, within the same tier if you get a plus, or you'll move down a tier if you can move up a tier somewhere else. But it's not always that easy. How do you go about knowing when it's time to shift tiers?
Because the issue, right, is that positionally, you know where that player is going to slot in. You know what they're going to do for your team. The issue of the flex, especially if you're adding a third running back to your roster, is depending on what week it is, you may not always play this player. So the relevance to your active roster and active squad is not always the same as buying a top tier player. So Dalvin Cook, you mentioned, tier 3 asset as a running back. You compare that going, well, we need a way to compare what's the impact for my team going to be to make these players applicably comparable. Because if not, then you start getting into the realm of your trade calculators. It becomes a lot more confusing and convoluted. And then when you start talking about trading multiple wide receivers for a running back, how does that equal out? Do I want replacement? As a general rule, we always like to look at replacing production, right? We always talk about this with our tier process. Replacing production with a running back, if it's a running back 2, can only really be done by a running back because you can't play, unless it's got Darrell Patterson, a wide receiver in that position. So that's why it gets difficult comparing these assets. So let's do a little sort of name game as far as wide receivers go with Dalvin Cook, right? Because we love these two positions. Wide receivers are generally younger, they produce for a longer period of time, and therefore as dynasty assets, they should be higher value. But the market says that running backs are.
Exactly. So it really depends. Each league is different. So I know, let's say, for example, Jacob's drafting in a league right now where a lot of the folks are wide receiver believers, and these elite running backs are going in the 5th and 6th round.
Yeah.
That would mean you now have less leverage, right? If you're in leagues with those types of folks, it would mean you have less leverage with running backs. That's why knowing your leagues is so important. An episode that we talked about, I wish I knew which episode it was.
If you missed that one, you'll have another one sometime soon.
Exactly.
It's going to pop up
Knowing
again.
your leagues is so clutch and so important. Maddie just posted this here in the chat. I actually had someone ask me, why wouldn't want to swap my wide receiver for his if I have his wide receiver 3 slots higher? Because it doesn't gain anything for you to just swap within your same tier. You need that plus. You need to be, unless it's a big giant age difference or it's really advantageous, but you would have accounted for that within your tiers. So it doesn't make any sense to do that. Now, Tom Lee, when you're talking about running backs, I find running backs to be the hardest position to trade.
They have to be.
Right. Yeah. Last year I traded, this is a great example. I traded Chris Godwin for Austin Eckler last year in the off season. And it was a really easy trade. Their values were Godwin was kind of in that top 12.
Yeah,
Eckler
was 10 to 15. Eckler was
right,
more of that
and Eckler at the time was out of the top 12.
Yeah.
So I had to trade a receiver right in that top 12 range for a running back just barely at 12 or just after 12. And that's what you're going to have to do, I feel like. So when doing this name game, let's do it like this. Let's say every trade that you're trading Dalvin Cook involves Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming back. Because I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the strangest, most difficult running back to trade right now. So I want to say if you're just getting a replacement running back, he's probably a tier 5 running back right now. That low wide receiver, oh my God, running back 2. So let's say every trade, when we're having this conversation, like, hey, I'm interested in Dalvin Cook, and I say, I'll trade Dalvin Cook, but I need a running back to come back my way. Let's say that you have Clyde in that scenario, and I'll be the Dalvin Cook manager. How would we go about this? What would you offer in this case when it comes to tiers?
So we're looking for a piece on top of Clyde. So we know you've got you don't know you've got the replacement production, but you've got the piece that you're happy with, saying, all right, I've still got a piece there. I can fill it in. What can I add to it? So we're talking about replacement production. Clyde doesn't justify replacing Cook's production. What sort of wide receiver is going to fill that void? I mean, it's a difficult one because if you got, what's your tier 3 for Dalvin Cook? So that'd probably be where I'd first start at. We know we hate rankings, but I'd start trying to push you for a number or a range of numbers, right? What sort of range do you have Cook in? Because if your tier 3 is running back 5 to 8, because you have one guy in tier 1, that's where I want to first start identifying what your tiers are, because it's fine, it's all tiers. Not all tiers are made equally, right? They are entirely independent, which is how they should be. So I want to know, okay, where is this tier 3? Give me a sort of range. Let me ballpark it so I get an idea. Yeah.
That's okay. So I actually have Dalvin Cook in my 3rd tier, but he's the highest of my 3rd tier. So I would call him running back 8.
Cool. Yeah, perfect, right? So running back 8, we know it's top 12. It's on the back end, which means all the younger guys are generally going to be a little bit higher. You're already getting Clyde back. Let's say he's running back 20 to 22. In the best case scenario here with tier 5, because those tiers get nice and thick and juicy the more they slide outside the top 10 because it gets harder. So we're looking to make up a 2-tier gap, somewhere between rank of 8 and 22. So, I mean, wide receiver anywhere from sort of 16 to 26, depending on how thick your wide receiver tier is, starts to be a comparable piece for me, because you're looking at solid production, not a spicy name, not going to be a top contender. You're not going to blow away the trade negotiation. So, I mean, for me, and I don't want to get into too many of the players we're going to mention later on, but when you start scrolling through some of the names, guys that have fallen, Deandre Hopkins, classic example of a guy that's just fallen off boards, that has very limited time available. His rank is low, but his value for short term is high, right? So if you're replacing production, you want a guy who you know has a really high ceiling to produce, but maybe not as long as far as longevity goes.
See,
you know,
I'm looking like CeeDee Lamb is probably my favorite spot.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm trading Dalvin Cook, I want to go and get CeeDee Lamb, who's falling probably outside of people's top 10 or 12 right now for wide receivers.
Yeah.
He's right in that sweet spot. He's going to be in the tier 4 for wide receivers, probably for most people.
Yeah,
anywhere between that 12 and 16 range for wide receivers pre-draft. So why wouldn't you trade your aging running back for that kind of wide receiver and replacement, quote unquote, level low RB5 tier running back in Clyde? I mean, that's the type of deal. That's what I would be asking for.
That's your ideal deal. I mean, the only reason I didn't say, because I thought CD first up, because it's a major buy this offseason. But he is so young, and you're going to get such a large range of perspectives on him. I wanted to go with a guy that's a little bit more dusty, doesn't have quite the shine. So, I mean,
I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is being actively looked for. I wouldn't trade you a running back that's aging at 25, 26, who is hella productive on the field, for a receiver who is barely productive on the field, who's also injured.
So, and it also depends which side of this you are, because if you're the CEH side of me, you're right. You're going to need to entice this person out.
Like if you're trying to entice me with DeAndre Hopkins, it's not
going to happen.
That's not. I'm immediately going, I'd rather CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's immediately where I'm jumping to. I'm skipping through all of that. And then you can even add, well, if we're doing CeeDee Lamb, I'd want to pay, and I would promptly say no. But like I feel like that's kind of where he's at.
Yeah.
And
the tough part is we've got two guys coming up later that I think would be perfect for this. I don't really want to get to them yet.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I think they'd be direct comparisons.
But that's
what we're doing.
That's what's important to know, right?
This is what we're talking about flex. Yeah.
You're dropping an upper tiered running back for a lower tier wide receiver, but you're not really.
Yeah.
Right? Because CeeDee Lamb's still a very valuable dynasty asset. People are just sour pants about him right now, and his value's kind of dropped. That's exactly the type of player that we're trying to reach out and get.
Yeah, and the irony of flex trading is you may try to replace the production through a different position. So in your situation, CeeDee Lamb is the production replacement, but you can't put him in the running back position. So your second asset becomes a running back. You know, the added incentive. So this is what we talk about flex. Let's go to the one-to-one comparison, right? Because you mentioned Godwin for Eckler. This is where it gets a bit more difficult, because whether you're drafting or whether you're post-draft and trying to trade them, it's so difficult to move away a running back with any seeming value for a wide receiver, because people just don't see them as comparable pieces, and it freaks people out to have no running backs.
And so it's not only that, but most people just don't want to trade for running backs in the offseason.
Not at all.
Trading for running back in the offseason is the worst time, because everyone that has one is wanting to offload them, but they don't want to offload them because they just came off this such and such type of season.
Yeah.
So trading for a running back right now is suboptimal, but there are occasions, like the Godwin for Eckler deal example, where it does play out. When you're looking at moving up and down through your tiers in a trade, especially one for one, and we stick to running backs and wide receivers because superflex values are really hard. But this is a great thing. When we're talking about superflexes, when you're listening to our show, we're always talking superflex. We're always talking PPR. That's it. Like, that's our standard. Okay. And I should have probably mentioned that ahead of time for people that may not have known that heading in. My bad.
People.
We'll get that. But let's actually talk about some 1-for-1 swaps, quarterbacks to running backs, because I feel like this is important. So if we're talking about an upper tier 3, maybe a tier 2 running back like Dalvin Cook, and I'm just going to keep hitting on Dalvin Cook here. what are the quarterbacks you're swapping him out for 1-for-1? Because a low end, let's say a tier 4 quarterback or a tier 3 quarterback, like let's Tua, right?
Yep.
Everyone was real high on him. Now it's mid tier. Like Dalvin Cook for Tua. Are you saying yes or are you saying no?
Tough part with quarterbacks is we know you can only ever play 2 of them. So it does cap their upside. It really depends. If you don't have a second quarterback or you have 2 and want the third one, you could take it. I mean, I'm fine with that value if you want head-to-head. We know, and we'll talk about it more in this offseason, don't get yourself in a position with quarterback where you feel like you have to take a deal like this.
Yeah.
Because it makes the value extremely high to your team, but no one else in the league. We saw something similar to this go down in one of our leagues the other day where Tua was acquired and everyone else in the league thought, oh, it's a terrible value. The person acquiring Tua had 1 quarterback, right? So to them, it's insanely valuable. So this stuff matters, and this is why flex is so difficult, because when you're in a draft, it makes sense. You can see everyone else's boards, you can see strategies. When you're in a one-on-one negotiation, Dalvin Cook for Tua, younger guy, going to produce for a long period of time, can only play 2 of them at any point in time. Yeah, I'm fine with that trade, but you'd again probably, for me, want that extra incentive because, you know, Tua might be your quarterback 12 to 15, that tier 4 guy, like you said, and Cook might be a tier 3 guy. But those aren't comparable tiers depending on which league you're in. So league value matters first. Then you go and look at team situation to see if there is.
So what would be the quarterback you'd be willing to trade him for? 1-for-1.
Fields, Hurts, probably not Hurts.
See, I don't think you're ever getting that. I don't think you're ever getting that. So what do you do then? That's too high. I don't think you're getting a Jalen Hurts for Dalvin Cook. Unless you're someone, let's say we saw in another league where a guy had 5 quarterbacks, so he can afford to trade one off. That's not really what we're talking about, but that's a situation where it can become acceptable.
Yeah.
But it is hard to 1-for-1 swap positions that have such niche value, like running backs, and it also depends too. If you buy in to the superflex quarterback value issue, which I never do, which has actually screwed me over with Tom Brady news, with him retiring. It has now put me in behind the 8 ball in a lot of leagues, and that's part of the risk. It's something that we're going to line up to talk about during the offseason here.
Yeah, I think
how do not do that? But how do you get yourself to that spot? Do you go, I'll take Tua and Clyde, I'll take Tua and a high second, because I don't think you're getting an extra first added on there. What is it for you that's going to get it?
Well, I think, like I said, quarterback, the valuation is difficult, but Tua is a really solid asset. Tua and Clyde, I mean, everyone's selling low on Clyde. You know, what could he be?
For example,
I don't mind that structure. Like,
for example, Tua today in a league went for Rashad Bateman and a 22 first.
Yep.
Now, would you trade Rashad Bateman at 22 first for Dalvin Cook? I don't think so.
To acquire Dalvin Cook?
To acquire Dalvin Cook. I don't think you're accepting that.
What pick is the first?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah.
I don't mind
that structure. Yeah.
But I don't think that would be enough for me to move him.
No, not move Dalvin Cook away. Like, that's why
unless you're okay, I guess it doesn't matter. So if you're talking about a top 4 22-1, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But overall, it's very hard to do a quarterback and not get one back. It's kind of what I'm getting at.
This is kind of the point of what we're talking. This is why it's a conversation topic, not a process-driven topic, because it's really difficult to do. I mean, this takes nuance, it takes time, it takes experience. You look at anyone's rankings when it comes to flex rankings, and instantaneously you get into it. Like, let's take Fantasy Pros, for example. We'll roll through, and you look at them, you're going, okay, all of a sudden you've got people next to one another, and it's just insane. You're going, okay, how have they got Kelsey next to Jamar Chase? You can't trade those guys one for one. Doesn't make sense. But then all of a sudden, Josh Allen's also in that tier. So it's like these 3 assets are no longer comparable. Their production might be the same for that given year, but you can't really successfully rank or have flex tiered rankings to compare pieces for pieces, because every single league is different with how many flex positions they have, what types. The reason we chose running backs versus wide receivers is because we all play a lot of them and we all know the names really well. but the nuances within the rest of it become very, very difficult.
Yeah,
so
the wide receiver for running back, the wide receiver for running back trades are always the easiest. It's when you mix in like the tight ends, the quarterbacks, then you start adding 2 or 3 pieces to quote unquote equalize value with quote unquote fucking upside. Get out of here. But that's why it's in this. Well. That's why it's in this segment. That's why it's punishing a Tolly, right? Because you're gonna have these conversations.
And it's going to happen all off season. And you're going to do your head in about it, thinking, what do I do? Is this okay value? You know.
And you're not always going to be able to just harp on this is my this is my rank, this is where my positioning, this is the statistics. It's not always about that. It's always important to have these kinds of conversations. I just threw a poll up real quick on the Tua and Cook. Right now it's 66% Dalvin Cook and 33% Tua. So it's showing that you're going, even though it's quarterback, right, and running back, aging running back still. I mean, Tua is definitely turning. Yeah. He's becoming a buy, like a very big streaming buy. So we're gonna cap that conversation where it is. We're gonna have a bunch more of these, and like I said, these are just the more casual talk throughs off points. Yep, 100%. Very important to have. When we come back, we're gonna be doing a Yui. We're gonna be talking about poll results from last week's. What was it? Was last week's trades discussions, right?
Yeah. Trades we've done in the past that could.
Right, trade flashbacks. That's what it was. It was trade flashbacks. So we're gonna come back. We're gonna talk about that. And it's gonna be great. Sit tight. Back in just a second. Now I know what you must be thinking. These guys are so relaxed today. Tom's not going off on a tangent, right? We're not making bold accusations and hot button. You don't always need to have those things. I mean, maybe for entertainment we might need to. We'll see what the downloads are like, but
we're only 30 minutes in.
Yeah, exactly. But like I'm just not someone that needs to really make crazy predictions, but I am going to make one specific prediction, and it's not on here in the review for the trades and the flashbacks. Cam Akers is straight up going to be top 5. Cam Akers is straight up going to be top 5. I traded 106 for Cam Akers a couple months ago, and I cannot wait after again seeing them last weekend. He's going to be top 5. You can book it in right now. He's explosive. He's going to catch passes. He's going to score plenty of touchdowns. I don't see why 12 total touchdowns and 13 to 1,400 yards total for him could be out of the question. You could catch 50 passes, no problem. He's going to be top 5, and you can book it right now. You trading 106 for Cam Akers. 106. I would probably trade everything but the 102 maybe for Cam Akers straight up. Maybe. Because I like Burks so much. But that's easy to say now. There could come a point where I'm not willing to do that. So
even in that situation, you need Burks to become Chase or Jefferson, really.
Yep, exactly. Cam Akers is the buy, and you should just give up what you need to get him. He's going to be top 5. He's up above the Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara.
He's the reason we get to talk about these guys now.
Exactly. Just as a circle of life. With that comes some other running backs. So you picked 3 here that we're going to talk about. And
these are ones we didn't get to last week. So we wanted to talk about, we talked about last week with trade flashbacks. Part of your process needs to be checking in on what you've done, and does that still work for you, or do you need to reevaluate the way you've gone about it, right? And we thought, what better way than to throw it to the Twitter wolves so they can tell us whether or not we are, in fact,
and if we regret it. So a big part of this, we can all sit here on the Bird app and be like, I was completely successful in my leagues 100% of the time. I was always right. And we can invent new metrics and new stats just to lean more ways that are right. And then if it doesn't go right, blame process. But that's not fair to the people listening to the show. That's not
bullshit.
if for whatever reason you're taking our advice, which Lord have mercy on your soul, it wouldn't be fair for us to just sit here and lie about I love this trade. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I never do it. That's not true. We fuck up all the time. We're wrong all the time. And this whole exercise was based on whether or not we regret these trades, we would do them again. How do we feel about them now after letting it breathe? And so this is how I want to do it, Tom Lee. Okay. I want you to discuss each trade, and I want you to ask me which one I would have picked back then and which one I would pick now. So let's lead the people through it.
Let's do it. Trade number 1, Joe Mixon, or the 2022 106 and 112.
When was this done?
This was done 3 months ago.
Okay. 3 months ago. I'm taking Joe Mixon there for sure because I had Joe Mixon the rest of way to Alvin Kamara, and I got a little bit of heat for that.
Close to the playoff runs. It was,
I took a little bit of heat for that in the Full Tilt Slack channel that I still believed in Mixon more, even though P. Ryan might be the most aggravating. P. Ryan is the Taysom Hill of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's the most irritating player on the team when it comes to taking your fantasy points away from your players. Taysom Hill did it to Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas and Jared Cook and Drew Brees for no reason, and P. Ryan does the same thing to Mixon, just out of nowhere. 40-yard screen pass that he takes for a touchdown.
He's the LeGarrette Blount. He's the Jordan Howard. He's the one that comes in and ruins your day.
But it's so random because he's not good at anything. And I will say, I posted a video of this in the playoff game against the Titans when Simmons tackles him, quote unquote, and just uses his head as a basketball and bounces it off the turf, being the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen, was hilarious. So at least P. Ryan gave us that. He actually had a big touchdown last week.
Also, his beard game is on point. Post NFL,
it's very good. Oh, very good. It's a lot like what is with just sidetrack here. What is with backup Cincinnati Bengals running backs having pristine facial hair? Former Cincinnati Bengal Giovanni Bernard's mustache looks something straight up Pancho Villa. It was incredible. And now P. Ryan looking like Rick Ross out there with that beard. And I mean the fake Rick Ross, not the real Rick Ross, because we keep it straight OG here on the fantasy walkabout. But I think even looking at it now recently, how do you feel about this trade right now, looking back on it?
Well, I mean, I made this trade, right? So I took the Mixon side. So I was looking for another running back. I had a couple of first handy.
As you do.
Did I can't remember. Maybe I didn't. It doesn't matter. Anyway, the poll result was really close. It was actually 51 to 49%. Twitter had a slight edge to the picks. So, I mean, for me, it's probably still fair value. I think if you need to review and you need to refresh your younger team, you'd probably take the picks. They have a lot of, again, Twitter loves upside, so we know they're going to take the picks. But Mixon's solid. I mean, you'll see a lot of rankings where Mixon's starting to push that top 10, top 5 again, as he did a few years ago, and then he fell perfectly to be bought. He's a guy who's going to produce for at least the next 2 years really, really well. The offense around him is fantastic. Everyone really likes it. Hopefully the O-line improves. But, I mean, 2 picks, 106, 112, especially in this class where wide receiver and dominant wide receivers are quite deep and thick. You're probably not going to get the running back replacement, but you're going to get 2 pretty good assets this year to help fill in for that void of 2-year production. So, for me, I'd probably take Mixon at the moment. Having said that, he plays in the Super Bowl next week, and nothing would be worse than seeing something happen. Knock on wood.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think the playoffs are the most terrifying time for fantasy managers because you don't want your players to be out there getting hurt.
Yeah, I want them
like,
done.
No, you've won me a fantasy championship. Don't try to win one for yourself. You're going to get hurt.
Selfish bastard. Yeah.
You're getting 80 extra touches on the body. I'm counting.
In fact, fall just short and be more motivated for next year and give me more points.
Joe Mixon had 50 extra touches in the playoffs. Drop him in the rankings. He's going to move down a tier because he's on a tier count.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think this was a fun one to look back on, saying the process is right. If you're gonna trade away a running back and you're gonna get picks for it, you want 2 firsts. You want a couple of options. You can trade those away. You can bring in new pieces. It gives you a lot of flexibility. And I think this is just a general decent value sort of style trade for most of the year and off season.
And I think I would still take that trade right now. I
Yeah.
don't think because what's it going to be? Spiller and insert wide receiver, at 112, maybe a quarterback Corral. I think I'd still take Mixon in that. Just me personally. We'll see how the oh my God, the underwear Olympics pans out, but I think I'm still riding with the Mixon. I like that one. This one is really tough for me because I think that Najee Harris is the strangest dynasty running back asset to have. I know you don't get that confused with the worst dynasty running back asset to have, like I had mentioned in Clyde.
I think
Najee is the strangest because he came out in his rookie year, had a top 4, top 3 season.
Yep.
His points per game down the stretch didn't reflect that as much, but by God, he did it. Now they're going to have a new quarterback. You don't expect him to get 400 touches, but maybe he's more efficient. We don't know what's going to happen. So this trade here, how did you feel about it then when you saw it, and then how do you feel about it now?
So it's Najee for the 104, 111, and a mid to late 23 first.
Projected.
Right? Projected.
There's no way to
of course,
actually
it's
know
way
that.
too early. But yes, let's just say, for an example.
Can I just also mention when someone says like, that 23 first is going to be a late one?
Yeah.
You don't fucking know that. I have 3 injuries in week 1 and be toast. You lose
so many
McCaffrey
fifth place
and Henry
teams this year.
I
have so much 107. I'm so sad. But like it's one of those things that to get Najee off someone's team, you're going to have to pay a lot, right? 3 first, and with this draft class being quite low on running back at the moment, we haven't seen what's happening through, like you said, the underwear Olympics. 104 is looking pretty. Is it there? Is it not? You could get one, you might not get one, depending on what the quarterbacks do and depending on what the wide receivers do. So you've got a shot of replacing his production, but realistically, you're hoping for that 23 first. You're having to wait 2 years. So to see this sort of trade happen, you're going to have to incentivize heavily with the picks to try and get Najee being moved, because people are just convinced this guy's going to not even produce, but hold that value for a lot longer heading forward.
So I think this is a Matty trade, right?
This is a me trade again, but
this is a you trade again. Oh, I thought Matty made.
It's a bit different because I'll remove myself because I think it's just an interesting one to talk about.
And you took the picks, or you took Harris?
I sent the picks away, so it was me and Matty. So I sent the picks away for Najee because I really wanted to solidify a young asset. Yeah, and I didn't think I'd get it in this draft class.
I think at the time I went with the picks when I was asked about this.
If you ask me objectively, I'd probably go with the picks from a value point of view.
I think right now I want Harris because the running backs, aging out. He's a talented guy. I don't think he's like elite or anything like that with the ball in his hands.
But he's got volume.
But do you really think his workload's going to stop?
Yeah,
his workload's not going to – it might go from like 385 touches or whatever he had to like 325. And I think I'll still take that. He's a good receiver. He's a good receiver. They don't care. Tomlin does not care about running back rotations. It's one of the few places in fantasy football, and we talked about this pre-draft, where they still use a dedicated bell cow running back.
One guy.
And that's what they want to do. They used Lev Bell like that and James Conner, even though they weren't that good at it. Well, Lev Bell was, but James Conner
was a surprise.
Yeah, but they weren't elite athletic running backs, but they still got used in the workload space, and that's why I said that Najee Harris is this kind of newer hotness James Conner last year, and it kind of ended up looking that way with how they used him. So at the time, I think I went picks, but the great thing about going back and looking, I think I actually want to go Harris here, and it was an 84% victory for the draft pick, so very interesting. Yeah,
it's pick season. If you want value for picks, it's coming up.
Yeah, that. Or if you can just hold off a little bit, just wait that little bit longer for draft season, because oh my God. Okay, we got one more to get to, so we can actually do the bit here. It is Gibson or Kareem Hunt and 107. This trade is interesting to me because I feel like Kareem Hunt has value still, whether he's in Cleveland or not. I think he was a top 12 running back before he got hurt, which is insane. He seems to do it no matter what. Touchdown regression, whatever you want to claim is coming, he always seems to overcome. So this one is interesting. What did you feel when you saw this initially?
Excited to see Kareem Hunt leave my team. It's not fair. Kareem Hunt is one of those assets that I hate having because I have a lot of Chubb, and I hate watching them play together because it just takes
it's frustrating.
It's a nightmare, right?
It's not quite Taysom Hill level because at least you expect it.
And then the way they run their system is like if you take one of them out, the other one doesn't necessarily get all of the touches, right? Because they just generally alternate drives. So for me, I'm like, well, there's no point having two guys that are going to alternate. One's going to boom one week, one's going to move the other week. Let's diversify this portfolio a little bit. Gibson's value seems to have slid a little bit, but now it's still on the way back up. He's a guy that I want a lot of coming into next year if I can get a bit more of it. So that was the goal for me at the time, obviously. So I took Gibson. I was pretty happy with it. But it really depends on your evaluation of Hunt here because the 107 is a nice asset. We said before, 2 firsts for a guy like Mixon. Gibson's probably around that same tier, maybe higher, maybe lower, depending on who you like in that position. So you need another piece to incentivize. If Kareem Hunt's not worth if Kareem Hunt's worth a first, so let's say the 112, then it's very comparable. Mixon for the 106, the 112, the trade that we liked before. Hunt in the 107 could be directly comparable in this deal. So for me, it's an equal value. It really just depends on what your opinion of Kareem Hunt is because not all players are made equal in people's minds.
And it also really depends on your evaluation of Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson seems to be a great athlete.
Even more poignant. Yeah.
But the guy played better with a fractured foot on a porous offense. And do you really think the offense is going to improve that much? I don't know.
Good new name, man. New name.
New name might do
Charge.
it. New uniforms, more controversy. Who knows? But I think J.D. McKissick is still on the Commanders next season. That's so weird to say. That's so fucking weird to say. So I think I would also take the shot at 23-year-old Antonio Gibson, who seems to be getting better as a running back. But I just don't think he'll ever be what we had hoped for.
No, the surprise to me was the reaction on Twitter. So, I mean, the polls were overwhelming. 86% took Gibson.
Yeah.
You know? You've got a guy, like you said, who was, before he got injured, a top 12 running back and a mid-first
of that, I think I was straight up a sell all Antonio Gibson person. That's what I was saying. I want out. I think I still kind of want out, but I don't think I would want out for Kareem Hunt and 106, right? Okay. So I think in this case, I'm still taking Antonio Gibson because I just don't see what other people see in Kareem Hunt as a standalone value. And like I said, I traded 106 for Cam Akers straight up.
If you can get that sort of value, you're going nowhere near this sort of trade.
Yeah, exactly. I think, oh man. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with Antonio Gibson here and just hope that he's still just a good football player next year because he's absolutely athletic. Very tough trades though. I like that. I think if I were to first see that, I would immediately gravitate towards Gibson. And even after a couple of months, I'm still on the Gibson side.
Yeah.
And then we can revisit some of these post-draft and see if any of that's changed our minds. Absolutely. But Twitter, the Bird app itself went with a whopping 86% victory margin for Antonio Gibson, which would make, obviously, Kareem Hunt a screaming buy right now. Even though I don't want to roster him, if he's going to be that cheap. Because in here, to me, this is late second territory. That's 107 and a late second to me for Antonio Gibson. This is exactly the type of thing we were talking about when it came to tier-based trading and how to get a replacement running back while also moving up a tier somewhere.
Looks sensible. Yeah,
exactly. 100%. So we're going to take a quick second. We're going to go through the last 10 minutes and do the hard yakka for today, which are players we are iffy on. I'll explain that a little bit more when we come back. All right, Tom Lee, explain to the people what this next segment is, what it means, and what it's about.
All right, so hard yakka, we know, right? Fantasy process-driven conversation. Little exercises you should be running on your rosters, your drafts, just your dynasty mind at any point in time to make sure you are not becoming a fool and making sure you get the most out of the game that we all love and play. Today, we're looking at players we're a bit iffy on. So I didn't know if iffy was going to translate. Don't really know where it comes from, but it's players you're just looking at going, what do I do with you, right?
Yeah.
We're going to look at 5 of them. We're going to roll through them pretty quickly. The 5 are Aaron Jones, Keenan Allen, Darvin Cook, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Calvin Ridley, right? Plenty of different things wrapped up in all 5 of these guys. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of hype that's fallen away, there's all sorts of issues, but we all have a lot of shares of these guys because they're very productive people when at their best. And you just don't know what to do. So where do we go with them? So let's dive in a little bit to the first one, Tom. So Aaron Jones is a guy who we loved for the last couple of years. Huge production, had that touchdown year, that dominant touchdown year 2 years ago. Awesome assets owned in Dynasty. Problem now is he's, 27, 28? He's getting towards, he's past that age apex. His quarterback might leave.
And we don't know if he's gone, right?
We don't know if he's gone.
Yeah.
There's a small, thick thigh gentleman that comes in that looks quite good every now and then.
Yeah.
But if they keep the same split of snaps, then in theory, he should still be productive again. So what do you do with Aaron Jones?
Here's the thing is I don't think you can move him if you've held on to him this long.
Right.
I think he's one of those players, and it's so frustrating. I think he's one of those players that Aaron Jones is a player that you are riding into the sunset.
Yeah.
On your roster, unless you are willing to take the quote unquote value hit and accept a really late one or add something to get a 23-1. I don't think anyone's really giving up a 23 first right now to acquire Aaron Jones, but it doesn't hurt to go and ask for it. Or you can go and you can acquire. You might be able to go and trade an Aaron Jones for a Devin Singletary plus type deal right now because people may not believe in Singletary. You might be able to take a shot, and if that plus is say a Jerry Jeudy, a late 1, right, an early 2, I think that you can get away with that. But there's not a lot of people that have Aaron Jones that are willing to do that.
The goal for Aaron Jones this year was to try and cash him in for 2 firsts. If you could do that at any point in the year, or a player that not everyone's as hot on and a first, I think that was the best opportunity to cash out at. But now with him in the offseason, if you're stuck with him on your roster, you are hoping that he keeps quite a bit of the share of this offense. Or you're hoping that it stays interesting or gets traded.
Or gets cut.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Right. This is why I said that trading away or trading for running backs right now is the worst time of year.
It's just a tough time of year.
The fucking worst.
Look at his points per game. 3rd overall in 2019, 4th overall in 2020, and then dropped to 11th this year. That's
still top
in one
12.
direction only, but it's still top 12. And that's the key is wherever he goes, provided he gets, 30% of even of the snaps. Like he's quite efficient. He catches it well. This is a guy who can score touchdowns and produce and have big boom games. You could get value for him, but for me, I think, like you said, hold on to this guy is probably ride to the death is the way to go. Because I don't think there's an opportunity to cash out. Last question on him, Tom, is there an opportunity to buy into Aaron Jones?
I think there is, but right now it's the scariest time to do so because his value, if Aaron Rodgers leaves, plummets and now you've overpaid, right? Or he gets traded somewhere and you missed out on it. So you can go 2 ways. If he gets traded to, this was a hot one last year, but Arizona, if he gets traded to the Cardinals, which I don't see, right? Which I don't see happening where he gets cut and he signs there or signs anywhere where he's the number 1 guy. Then you've underpaid, but you're risking it all for that kind of move. And I know that's kind of one of the things that we bet on, but I don't see myself out actively trying to move a 1st-round pick for Aaron Jones. But like I said, if I could maybe ship off a Devin Singletary, right, and a mid 2, I think I would absolutely do that, and I think that that's actually possible right now with how the Devin Singletary landscape looks.
Yeah, I'm a little different with it, just the finishing words on Jones. If I've got the 111, 112, and I can get it straight up for Aaron Jones, I will trade that pick away, especially because picks right now are getting hotter and hotter. I'll take the gamble. A guy who could produce top 12 numbers for me, even if it's 1 or 2 years, for a late first in this draft, I'm happy with it.
Very interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not that brave with it.
It's just why it's such a great one, because you look at that roster piece, you go, what the hell am I doing with it? What can I do? And that's why we're talking about it. Player 2, let's roll on. Keenan Allen. All right. Keenan Allen, getting older, smooth route runner, a guy we love having in our fantasy teams. Points per game, number 8 overall 2018.
I love Keenan
7th
Allen.
overall 2020, 11th overall last year, points per game, right? This guy produces fantasy numbers. Doesn't matter if you're PPR or not. He is just an awesome asset to have, especially if you want that solid baseline in the wide receiver 2-3 position, depending on how many you play. But he's getting older, right? He is still attached to Herbert. He's getting older. That offense is still flying along. But what are you doing with him? Can you still trade him away? Is this one of those age apex pieces like Hopkins was last year or the year before? Can you cash in on this guy while he's still holding on to that edge of 12th to 18th wide receiver in Dynasty, or do we ride him into the sunset? What are you thinking with Keenan Allen?
I don't want to trade away my Keenan Allen. I want to go and get him. He is attached to Justin Herbert. He is a player that I'm still willing to spend a first on. So do you remember Dalvin Cooks? Oh my God, I cannot get off of Dalvin Cook today. He is on my brain. No, do you remember DeAndre Hopkins' value last year?
Yep.
And how high it still was?
Yeah.
Keenan Allen is right at where DeAndre. Sorry about that. Is right where DeAndre Hopkins is. Keenan Allen to me right now is the buy in that DeAndre Hopkins range of players.
Yeah.
I want to acquire him on my team. If I can ship out Aaron Jones for Keenan Allen, I will.
Spice, there's a poll. Get on that. Maddie,
I would trade Aaron Jones for Keenan Allen in a heartbeat.
That is something we will reflect on next week, because I want to see that head to head, because that is perfect, right? These players are going to produce or should produce, but you're right. Keenan Allen attached to that arm in that offense is just money. The only issue for me is age. If you decide you're keeping him this year, you are likely keeping him until he retires, because there's no point trading him away next year. If you can cash out now for a mid-first, feel free to. I would still keep the Keenan Allen, like you said.
Yeah, I'm trying so hard to get Keenan Allen everywhere. I'm so happy I held on to him in a lot of places. Yeah, I just think he's at that peak spot. We're gonna get 2 more years of 110 receptions of Keenan Allen. I think he's unreal as a player. And if Mike Williams is gone, oh boy. Just not only is Palmer going to be a great player to have, but oh my gosh, Keenan Allen.
And even if they bring in a young guy, even if they bring in a stud number 1, you've seen how this offense runs. They want the big bastard down the sideline, that dominant man like Mike Williams is. Keenan's always going to be there. Between Keenan and between Eckler, like there's your checkdowns, there's your money that moves the chains. It's always going to be there for the next couple of years. It really just depends how old do those hamstrings get, and does it happen too quickly?
Yeah, I'm not super worried about that, honestly. I've kind of he's still looked at as a player who's quote unquote injury prone. We know how we feel about injury prone, but he's still looked at that way when really that's not the case. He started off with bad luck, and it's just kind of one of those players that it's stuck with him. I love Keenan Allen, and I want him on every roster that I can.
Yeah. All right, next one. Darvin Cook. We mentioned him a little bit earlier. But if you took points per game,
out of my mind.
You took points per game, 2019, 2020, the number 2 overall fantasy player points per game. That's nuts. Dropped to 9th this year, but that's still a top 12 guy. Where are you at with him? Because there's a few different things. I don't want to dive too deep into what the offense is going to look like and what it's going to be. Madison's not taking over. He's the guy, right? We're just taking that as written for now. But Madison's
still a Jag.
Yeah.
He's not a great
the role
player.
Isn't a Jag, but yeah.
But I think, we don't know what it's going to be now.
That's the issue,
Now that it's different. I also just found out it was weird. We were talking about this in the Slack channel, right? Me, you, Maddie, and Jacob.
Yep.
The Vikings use Madison as more of a receiver than they use Dalvin Cook as a receiver, even though Dalvin Cook is much better with the ball in his hands. And
number 11 in evaded tackles.
Yeah, it is so strange to watch them do that. And Madison was so great at carrying teams while he was hurt, averaging 24, 23 points per game when he started. Just unbelievable. Where am I at with Dalvin Cook? I've traded them all away except for one team, which I'm still actively trying to do it. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with anything other than I did trade him away. Never mind. Hold on. I did trade him away.
They're all gone.
Did I trade him away?
The Cook sale's gone.
Oh my gosh. Give me 1 second here. I'm gonna update. Look, yeah, if I had him, I was definitely trying to move off of him.
Yeah.
Because I think he's a trap after this year.
Right? But that's the issue, right? So next year he turns into
he was productive.
Yeah.
He looks super fantastic, and they gave him
great.
the ball a lot.
Yeah.
Playing injured on that shoulder, he had 27 carries against Pittsburgh, 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. Granted, that was fucking Pittsburgh, and they were terrible. And then throughout the rest of the year, he didn't really do anything else.
Yeah.
0 points against the Rams, didn't play. 4 PPR points against Green Bay, 9 PPR points against Chicago. Right, the offense itself just sputtered down the hole. But when Dalvin Cook played for the most part, you loved having him. But I traded him away right around that Arizona game last year, the Carolina game. I traded him away because I just kind of saw it. He is the type of player. He is where I was at with Aaron Jones. We were trying to trade him for 2 firsts.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is your opportunity and the best thing about this is this draft class doesn't have the standout running back coming through.
It doesn't have the spice.
Dalvin Cook is still going to look really good after the draft. And that's something that you can still bank on this year. You can trade away for first picks, whatever you want. But if you're going to sell him, this is the season to do it because next year he's going to look like Zeke. And you are buying into him with the hope of 1 or 2 more years after that because, you'd hope there's juice left. But
what would you add to Keenan Allen to get Dalvin Cook?
To get Dalvin Cook?
Yeah. Or sorry, other way around.
Other way around?
Because if you're trading Dalvin Cook for Keenan Allen, you wouldn't do that 1-for-1 likely. What would you add? If you were trying to get him? So
if I was trying to get which side am I taking? If I'm
trying to get Keenan Allen for Dalvin Cook, what would you trade?
And I'm adding a piece to Keenan Allen to try and make sure I get the value I want for it.
Exactly. Yeah. To get the value you wanted.
It probably leads into the next guy we're talking about because I'd love to add a Clyde Edwards-Helaire to Keenan Allen.
You are on the buying of Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now more than anyone else.
And we won't jump to him just yet, but you're right. So you look for a player like that. I mean, you could talk if you're a Singletary fan, by all means, chuck that in. If you are, Josh Jacobs for me is essentially younger, fatter, slower Dalvin Cook, not as good. Dalvin Cook, not light. Dalvin Cook, heavy. But he's that sort of guy. You know you're going to get production. You can pop him in your flex. That for me, Josh Jacobs and Keenan Allen for Dalvin Cook. If I'm bringing in Keenan Allen and Josh Jacobs, I'm happy with that deal, and I like that structure. Because it's a guy that is not sexy, but I know what he is. He's a known guy.
You're going Clyde Edwards-Helaire
and Keenan
Allen for Dalvin Cook.
Yeah,
that is another interesting. That is another interesting trade that we will definitely look back at for sure next week. I will bookmark that. For me, what would I add to get to that? I'd like to get a first, right? Obviously, but
Keenan the first is going to.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect where I would start, and I would probably end up with like a Clyde, right, or a Singletary.
Right. You'd work your way back
I'd probably end up with a Singletary or a Clyde, someone that I'm willing to take a risk on instead of that mid draft pick. I think that's where I'm at. Let's move on to the next player.
CEH. We just talked about him, right? The stats don't read well. Doesn't matter which category you look at. All of them are sort of 20 plus. And that's reflected in his fantasy scoring. Drafted high. The last thing you're sort of writing out here with CEH is that people believe in this draft capital and being attached to that offense. Look, they're not going to use him like we ever wanted him to be used. But for me, if you can buy him cheap enough, maybe I'm reconsidering the Dalvin Cook one already. If you can buy him cheap enough, I think it is still worth rolling the dice just because of this draft class. I would never send a 23 first for him. I probably would edge on not wanting to send away a first this year for him if you can avoid it. I'd look to send 2 lower wide receiver pieces or a wide receiver piece that I'm not as keen on to try and acquire him just to see if there's anything left. If he can turn into a Josh Jacobs who sits in my flex and just fills the floor, I'd love it. The problem is I'm just not convinced in that offense he's going to ever have the floor. He'll probably likely have boom and bust games. And for a running back, I don't want that shit in my flex.
Yeah, I'm just not trying to acquire him. So the only way I'm trying to trade for Clyde is if he's kind of a toss in on top of another.
This is it. Do not misconstrue what I'm saying if you're watching the show. I'm not a Clyde fan, but I think there is an opportunity to get here and see. I'd rather see what the dice roll is on my team at the moment for that price than what he's on someone else's. Because if I'm facing him next year and he looks great in the playoffs.
You even recently traded Tyler Boyd and a 22 second. I don't know which.
It's 211.
211 and Tyler Boyd for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I think that that's a perfect deal.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like Tyler Boyd's going to fill someone else's flex spot, but if Clyde is anything, I'm sorry, Tyler, I sent you away, but yeah, I'll take that dice roll. You know what you get in one. I'll see. You never know.
Yep. It's interesting because when he's not hurt, right, Clyde seems to start building up some momentum.
Yeah. What if he gets moved to a team that I don't know uses
it's not
his
even
potential?
It's not even that. It's just if he can just stay healthy, so he can stop having second and third stringers come in and look better than him. Jet McKinnon came in when he had got hurt, and then Darrell Williams got hurt, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this guy is pretty good."
We still have this guy.
It just shows that drafting a running back in the first round generally doesn't work. Doesn't work out great for you.
It's not a great idea.
Not a fantastic idea. Who else do we got? Let's try to finish this off. We're gonna try to keep
last player. Calvin Ridley.
Oh,
my boy,
your boy. Yeah. So sorry here, Tom Lee.
Right, points per game. Right, 18th in 2019, 4th in 2020. That was his boom year. Absent in 2021.
For a seemingly aging wide receiver who lacks explosiveness, it's very tough.
Things to remember, just because he was hot last year, if you're out there and you don't look a lot into these players, he was old as fuck coming out of the college system. He was 25, I think, when he got to Atlanta. So he's 27 or something this year. So he's already edging towards that age apex. He doesn't seem like he wants to be on Atlanta next year. So he is kind of one of those, where's he going to be? He's a free agent. What do we do with him? Is he a buy? Is he a sell? You can't really sell him because you're not going to get a lot of solid value for him. But at the same time, if you keep him, he could literally be nothing. Like this, like for me, I love Calvin because he was on the Falcons and for what they did, but he's not explosive compared to a few other pieces. You'd much rather have someone like Keenan Allen because you know where they're at and what they're attached to. But is there an opportunity to buy Calvin Ridley here? This is a real iffy one for me, right? Because there's obviously a Falcons bias, but now that might be gone. Yeah, he could just be out there. A little free agent action.
Here's the thing with Calvin Ridley is, do you want to acquire Calvin Ridley? What his price will be. Yeah. Because his price right now is still, people who have him aren't going to let you have him for a bucket of tennis balls.
He might be the Clyde Edwards-Helaire of the wide receiver group.
No, but he was actually
productive when he was in the field.
Good at one point. Like, that's the thing. And I was never in on Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, we had this chat last year. Yeah.
Plenty. Yeah. We've had it since as long as I've known you, 3-4 years now, where I'm just not interested in having Calvin Ridley as an aging player who doesn't show much in explosiveness, who can get open, but he's kind of a route runner that plays outside, not inside. He's just not a player that I like to attach myself with. So would I want to acquire him now? And I've been watching Jacob, our other co-host, FF_RTDB, in drafts, getting him in the 7th and 8th round. That's perfect. That's the Cooper Kupp, right? Cooper Kupp spot. That's generally a player that I love to go and get. So yes, I would. But what are you trading to get him right now? Are you trading a late first for Calvin Ridley? There's so much up in the air. It is hard to say that where else is he going to go where he's going to be a 135 target player, 145 target player.
Doesn't help this year as well. There's so many good wide receivers coming through that look amazing on tape.
Yeah, and guys like OBJ are going to be a free agent. Like, where is he going to? Allen Robinson's a free agent. They're going to be cheaper. They're going to be cheaper options for teams.
I think that's the best point out of all this, right? You made the best point there, which is you don't need to pay up for what Ridley could be to get his production elsewhere. You can pay a lot less or get a throw-in that replaces it. You can get Renfro as a throw-in, possibly still. Maybe people are
not with McDaniel's news.
They're done?
Yeah, not with McDaniel's news now.
But yeah, you could get
Edelman
and
Welker. Edelman and Welker just shot Hunter Renfro's value straight up.
We're gonna have a Renfro episode this year. Billy will be coming back for a Renfro episode. So I mean, Ridley. I mean,
are you trading Gabe Davis and 201 for Calvin Ridley?
Yes.
You're not too sure about that. Is that kind of, because would you trade a straight? Okay, let's just say, would you trade a straight up 110 for Calvin Ridley? If you were trying to get Calvin Ridley, would you trade 110 to get him?
Would I trade the 110 for Calvin Ridley? I'm going to say yes at the moment, but I think that's my bias.
It's real tough for you.
I feel for those people out there because I've already normally got Calvin Ridley, right? So this is an issue for me. I'm holding on and I'm hoping it comes good.
I
But
would 100% trade 110 for Calvin Ridley.
okay, all right. That makes me
And
feel a little bit better
I'm
than someone
not
who's a little more
on the Calvin Ridley side. So
Yeah.
that's why I want to have this discussion, because I feel like at that point, your 110 is so up in the air in a draft class like this. And I'm no draft expert, but I'm willing to bet, because if he goes somewhere that his value is going to go up, like imagine he goes to Miami.
Yeah.
Right. And takes on the big body receiver role. Imagine if he goes to New England where he becomes the wide receiver 1. Calvin Ridley is the New England Patriots poster child for targets.
Yeah.
Whatever personal issues / down year for quote unquote, I'm going to call him an aging vet because he's old as shit.
He is old as
so
shit.
Aging vet, down year, cheaper price. New
It's
England
never going to be lower, but yeah.
So he goes somewhere like that where he's there 1. I know people love Jacoby Myers, but come on, Calvin Ridley's just a better Jacoby Myers anyway. So I think it's worth a shot with 110. 110, you could be drafting your Keyshawn Vaughn this year, right? Your Jalen Reagor. Like, this is not a draft class that's quote unquote as unlock as 2020 and then 2023 is supposed to be. So I think I'm willing to do that. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, that's our last Twitter poll. We can chuck that up. We're going to review that later on because that'll be.
I'm literally chucking it up right now.
That'll be a very, very interesting one. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing, right? This is what Hard Yak is about. It's just jump in, have a look at it. You're going to have a lot of these guys on your rosters. What do we do with them? Are we just going to go, well, I'll just address it next year when the season comes around? Man, by that time, some of these guys could be dust. Some of these guys could be gone, or, they won't be affordable because everything happens in the offseason. So whilst it's not a great time to sell and buy a lot of assets, it also presents opportunity. This is why we do it this early on. So good to have these chats.
You need to have them. You absolutely need to have them. Like if you're not honest with yourself, with the players and rosters, you're never gonna accrue value. You're never gonna get better.
Yeah,
I think it's so important.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get.
No. I like it. Yeah.
The last
and I agree.
I think, and I'm going to roll out the poll numbers from what I have put up during the show. I need an assistant. If there's somebody out there that wants to be an assistant. Patrick is he's having a dispute right now. He wants more money and I can't afford it.
The cat got to him. I guarantee the cat got to Patrick.
Yeah, no,
HR
Patrick,
alpaca.
Our HR alpaca is on strike right now, and we're trying to reconcile.
Don't buy alpacas. We say this every year. Always say
this.
That's llamas or nothing.
That's the fantasy walkabout PSA. Don't buy an alpaca.
Be a llama farmer. That's what we always say.
A llama farmer. Oh my God, Tom Lee, why don't we hit us with your final thoughts and our Aussie slang for the day?
So I didn't want to rush you. I had a couple of different options for you, right? Because I got overwhelmed. I'm like, yes, slang time. There's heaps of options. I'm going to give you like a little choice here, Tom. Would you rather a phrase that means useless? Would you rather a phrase that means getting an erection? Or would you rather
erection?
Or would you rather hear some of the other words we use for anus?
Oh my God! Actually, okay. What are some of the words? Give me a word.
You're gonna get the other one next week, so you're not gonna miss out.
Give me the one about the anus.
All right. So the anus in Australia is also referred to as the balloon knot. Oh, we got more. Don't worry. The ham flower.
Oh.
The brown eye.
Okay, that one I know. I know that one.
The clacker. The date.
Oh my God.
The bunghole.
Okay, I know that one.
Good. The chocolate starfish.
Oh my God, we're getting classy. One more.
The rusty bullet hole.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
We've ruined the English language in a way that is unimaginable.
I think the balloon knot might be my favorite.
The balloon knot's fantastic.
Yeah, that's now forever what I'm going to have.
So if you ever want to expand your vocab and you want to call someone an asshole, feel free to use any of those.
From fig jams to balloon knots, the Walkabout's giving you the Aussie slang you need to make sure that you're not out there fucking spiders. Look, it's always great to do these shows. I think this show is one of my favorites, not only to do but to think about, because it makes and forces me to think about so many things with my dynasty teams and dynasty rosters. And it's so important to have these conversations and to have it with smart people. Tom Lee, you are terribly underfollowed at Tom_Lie92. It's absolutely need to be going and following Tom Lee. He's one of the smartest people, one of the most difficult people to negotiate trades with, because he's always out for your soul and he's out for blood all the time. And look, I'm doing this way too late. I got to do this sooner, but I did say I was going to touch base with the Saquon Barkley giveaway. The Saquon Barkley giveaway. In a couple of weeks, we're going to start doing our countdown of our players. Halfway through, so 2 weeks into that, by the time we get to 10, to win the Saquon Barkley jersey, you have to be following every member of the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast. And you have to show us that when you comment. Then you must go to the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast Twitter account at Dynasty Tilt and comment who you think the consensus number 1 and 2 picks are in our top 10, our top 20 rankings. That's consensus. Me, Tom Lee, Billy, Jacob, and Maddie. Wait, did I repeat someone?
No,
Me,
you're good. You
Billy,
forgot the,
Tom Lee, Jacob, Maddie. Okay,
yes.
We got it. All 5 of us. The consensus ranking. If you can guess the 1 and 2 or the closest, right, while also showing that you're following all of us on the show, you will win an autographed Saquon Barkley jersey from Penn State. So I'll get more on that. It's going to be dope. I can't wait to get into the rookie topics. We're going to talk more about it. And I always want people to remember the most important things around here. Be kind to one another. Don't be a piece of shit, right? Try to get along. Know your league mates. Check in on your loved ones. Remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose, and that your best days, well, they're always spent tilting. Good night, everybody. Have a safe weekend. Ciao.